Today is December 31st, 2018, and at this moment it's the midday, 12 hours left to the end of the day. And I am using a technique where I am seeing images in my head and just using a pen and paper to translate them so they make a little more sense to other people. So the title of this, as Image was presenting and pushing, was Trump. Trumpty, Dumpty. Oh my goodness, I couldn't believe that's what came in. Trumpty Dumpty. And so here's how it looked. I see a large egg with a little leg shooting out and another leg shooting out. And this is Trump with the very large hair and the eye masking, white eyes with very large mouth here. It's a small mouth, but it wants to say a lot. And here we see the arms coming out of, and he's tottering on a giant wall. And this, of course, obviously came in as the wall he wants to build. And he's beginning to show cracks. Now, he has been beginning to show cracks all along. But these cracks in his being are becoming obvious, especially if one sees them on television, which we're going to have more to say about TV. This is television here, which comes in. And yeah, they're coming in because what television does is enhance this wobbling, this difficulty, this cracking of the shell, the facade of Donald Trump. So Trumpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Trumpty Dumpty had a great fall. Yes, that's what I see. I see him dropping down here, and he's broken. He's broken into pieces of himself. So now I get all these pieces of him spread all over, and he's frantically attempting to put the pieces of himself back together. He's aware that as the new year is coming, he has to pull these pieces of himself together to make himself whole, at least appear whole. And he does. He uses temporary techniques. I see a roll of duct tape. I see crazy glue. I see all kinds of methods that he's using to pull the shell of himself together. Now, this shell of himself is much smaller than this original big shell of himself. This version of himself he's going to create is tiny. The shell is weaker and much more fragile, and it's barely hanging together. As he stands in front of podiums, I see him in front of these podiums with his arms holding on, and he's talking. He even needs steadying as he leans on podiums and leans on microphones to talk. So he's out of balance because he has to steady himself, and he's created a very fragile veneer now, which is not representing what's going on within the being. Now let's go within Donald Trump somewhat, and let's see what comes up for his inner state. Okay, first thing is, I can't find a center in this state. He is out of touch with what is his deepest motivation, his deepest core, his deepest center. And what I see instead is, of course, the famous cannon. This is cannon fire. And Trump believes if he fights enough and uses enough cannon fire from within himself, that he will be able to deflect his enemies and blow them away. That's what he wants to do. He wants to blow them away. And so the year 2019, I'm saying, is a year where, ooh, and I just heard my computer make a sound. Yes, this is the idea. He wants to attack his enemy, explode them, and blow them out of existence, off the planet. And again, here we see the big M coming in for Mueller. M for Mueller. Okay, we're going to get to that soon, too. Ooh, ooh, this is really, it's in a way kind of gruesome, the kind of interior, because it feels like airplanes, railroad tracks, cars, walking, running, hopping, skipping, jumping, backflips. It feels like all this action is existing within him, and this is what he wants to access. To move him, he wants to beat everybody down and then move. Move out of this situation. Move away from this big M. Move away from conflict as he sees it. Lots of conflict and difficulty. And so he's defending what? What is he defending with this blasting? And why does he want to move away from M? M is an interesting character. Let's take a look at M for a minute. M Mueller. M Mueller. M mess. Okay? M is the mess that Mueller represents. M is the minefield that's about to be opened up in 2019, which the implications of what Mueller is, I see he has a big book here, another giant thick book filled with files and tabs, which he has systematically organized. This is Mueller's strength, is administration, organization, and tremendous ability to bring forces together, to bring this book into completion, this file. And he has gathered information from individuals that have, again, led into other trails. So this file has tabs, but it has subtabs, subtexts, undercurrents, which have led to even greater undercurrents, which have led to even more subtexts. And he is disgusted. I feel his disgust with a lot of what he sees around him. He has a giant broom now. This is Mueller. And he's got this giant broom and he wants to clean everything up. It's a task that's completely daunting. But he understands that there will be a trickle-down effect if he can begin with the source of where all this starts. And there'll be a trickle-down effect. And this was the tuning in, the exploration, the penetration of Donald Trump, this egg which has fallen apart. And he knows that if he digs deep enough and moves in deep enough, that he will be able to at least create, it feels like 2 or 3 streams that are very, very powerful, that are the kinds of events that can definitely shake up his presidency, prove that he has created some kind of criminal action. I'm not a lawyer, but what I'm feeling is the energy of these files, 3, 4 of them, are so powerful that they create this ripple effect, which begins to uncover many, 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 many secrets and agendas that are hidden. Again, I explain, he cannot move into all of them, but this has been what he wanted. Now, I'm going to move to another piece of paper for a minute, because M is becoming very interesting, Mueller. And this is Trump, Trumpty. He's weak. Why does Trumpty come in instead of Trump? Because he's weak. He's becoming comical. He's becoming like a cartoon, okay? And he's dangerous now. As a result, he's dangerous. He has unleashed the floodgates of fear. And because he has done this to so many people, he has now become a threat. Oh, gosh. Oh, what's coming in now is amazing for me to see. First of all, he has a supposed base, but they are beginning to question. Only the blind here stay loyal to him. But many who see the children that are hurt and they have families and they starve and they don't eat and they don't have medical care and the jobs that are promised aren't delivered and the military is watered down and removed. This is very disturbing for them because military for them is power. It represents their power in the world, his base, and they're militant and they like the idea of fighting and staying in their position and strengthening their position, and they get very discouraged when he doesn't visit his military, except for the one time which he brought his wife, which acts like his, it's almost like I see her as his teddy bear or security blanket as part of this image, Humpty, Dumpty, and his wife, the trophy wife. So she's, she's the trophy wife. And he brings her everywhere, his security blanket, so he can look good and keep up the facade. But there's a rumble in the military. They did not like his presentation or the lack of respect for his army and the lack of support and motivation for his army. They did not like that at all. So it's this murmuring, this grumbling is moving through his base. It's moving through this low-level discontent. And then, of course, we know Mathis left, and he was he was a symbol of the military. And we see now, as in ancient times, when the military disengages and steps away from supporting its great leader, the king, the ruler, the president, that's the beginning of the end. That's the beginning of the end. Military crumbles and there's no support there. That is symbolic of broad support from many individuals. This is the United States of America here, roughly California and Alaska here. And, this is America, and he's losing tremendous support and faith. Now, the reason some of his team, as we know, Republican team, begins to defend him, they are getting spilled with this mess, the mess he's created from the yolk pouring out of him. And it's getting sticky and tacky. And what happens with yolk? It hardens and it becomes like something you can't remove. It was actually used in painting in medieval time into the Renaissance, and it was permanent when it was mixed with pigment. So they're going to get discolored and they're going to have this permanent kind of stain on them which they cannot remove. And of course, we saw back here in this other image the ripple effect of Trump. And what Mueller has discovered is that many people connected to Trump in the Republican Party, I see them, they're afraid they're going to get flat. This is a tombstone. This is a grave that they're going to die because their agendas will be uncovered. Their corruption, their liaisons, their activities, their deals, their blind selling out to lobbyists, to powerful entities in the United States which control business, and the military and the government, they are afraid that they're going to be destroyed. Very interesting image that comes in here. The terror that they fear. Their feet they're standing on shaky ground. I see their feet. They're in the stone complex, which is, you know, the great big fortress with marble floors, but inside the Senate, I see the floors turning to sand, and they're beginning to sink into the sand. And they know that they're going to, unless they can move out of the positions they're in, they know they're dying in quicksand. Another powerful, very interesting image. And so they also have their agendas. It does not have support of the House, the Congress, and the Senate at this point as things begin to crumple. And then we see a fourth aspect of Mueller here, and that is, well, I lost my train of thought for a minute here. Let me tune back into Mueller here. Mueller has a personal agenda. Let's go over here and look at Mueller for a minute. What happened between Mueller and Trump, which has caused this individual Mueller to go after Trump in such a strong, adamant way? And it has to do with previous experiences that these two have had together in lifetimes together. And let's take a look at this. I see Mueller as being, oh, this is interesting. He's been a female, and he has literally been a part of another one of Donald Trump's lifetimes. It feels like it could be in dynastic China and in medieval Europe. Two images come in where he is the woman in this familial situation. It's not exactly the wife. It could be the mother, or it could be a child. I get the feeling it's the mother almost watching this individual as he destroys his own family. This is not the first time Donald Trump has had a dynastic situation in the family as the leader of the troop or the head of the family. Oh, in another lifetime in Scotland. But this time he's much smaller and less powerful, and he just leads a small tribal band. And this time Mueller is his brother. Mueller is connected to him directly as a male brother feeling, brother, and a distant brother, maybe even a stepbrother. Okay, we have two women and a brother here. And they have watched him in these lifetimes destroy families which have taken them down and hurt them and hurt their children and offspring. And he was even treacherous to one of these women, where he sold out on her so completely it caused her death. It feels like this is Chinese. It feels like he ratted on his own mother in this lifetime, where he caused her to be taken up by the mob and killed. And this, for Mueller, is bleeding in. This treachery is bleeding into his life. These feelings where he has, I hear the word Machiavelli, where he has been mistreated, abused, and he has an agenda now that he has to right the wrongs from these previous lifetimes, these previous hurts that he feels are bleeding through into this life right now. He is unrelenting. He will not let this bone go. It feels like it quays in Mueller. Mueller, close-eyed. Mueller. Here's Mueller. Very close eyes, intensity. Stalk, thin, lean, a man who wastes no energy, no effort, no time. He goes after this individual powerfully. He doesn't chew any fat. He has aligned himself and organized himself like a tree with branches coming out, and they're all aligning themselves, one leading to the next, flowing into the next, flowing into the next. Very strong, determined energy here. Wooden, tree-like, and not bothered by weather, storms, emotions, anything. He is rooted. He has his agenda. These are the tree roots, and he is ready to attack the other branch of government. Literally branch of government, which Donald Trump represents. And Donald Trump has this inner terror of this individual because he actually has bleed-throughs also of injustices and inequalities toward women, toward his own relatives that he's turned on. This is Donald Trump here, and he has this inner terror and fear of this individual, which he cannot understand in this lifetime. It's an enigma for him. Why the terror with this man? Okay. So this is the channeling, the base and the military and the lack of support of the individuals around him, and the actual bleed-through information that comes into this individual in his life that disturbs him. This bleed-through information is very disturbing. Okay, so now we'll look at what I explained was television here is coming in. Television is coming in, and it's very polarized. And it's lost its agenda now of simply delivering data. It no longer delivers data. It becomes no data. All agendas of unseen power sources. P, unseen, unidentified power sources who feed this channel, make movie stars of the reporters, and they are, and they know it, they know, and they are questioning their motivation for what they do, their own fear and their greed for money, for prestige, for being out in front. They are the people, they are the puppets. I'm seeing strings and puppets here being pulled by strings from forces beyond themselves. They have lost their genuine selves and have sold out to a large degree. And even though some of these individuals I like as people, their choices that they have made in these moments where unity would be much more appropriate, cooperation, where higher ideals, the ideals of journalism, of news reporting have been turned over, turned upside down. They have been turned over and upside down, and they are using for purposes for which they were not intended. They are used for division, for drawing a line, for divisiveness, for increasing fear, for increasing separation, increasing disconnect. And it is a tragedy, a true tragedy. Wake up, people. Wake up, folks. Is this what we want for our children and our grandchildren? Is this the kind of world we want to see for all of those around us? Little children dying in, for whatever reason, when we can use our energy and our resources to bring up healthy, creative, wonderful human beings that could have potential lives of peace and joy. I guess, you know, the human condition is it's never quite like that, but boy, where we're headed, So, meanwhile, we were back here discussing in our first situation, Trumpty Dumpty falls off the wall and the cracks are beginning to manifest. Mueller, we have discussed, has his agenda, and he will not relinquish any of what he is doing, and it will increase. the terrible breakup, the cracking, the forces around Donald Trump also in the White House. Here's our White House, the big White House here, with the big lawn in front. It's beginning to look like the very swamp that he feared. He's creating in front of his White House a swamp. It encircles his White House, and it is a swamp from which he cannot escape. And those people around him who have supported him, these people who have defended him, they are aware that they are going to sink in a swamp too, and the terror in them builds. They cannot put Humpty together again, as much as they try. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horsemen, the knights that protected him and defended him on the chessboard, and all the king's men, the pawns, the army that fought for him, cannot put Humpty together again. This is what Donald Trump is looking at 2019. Very, very, very interesting year for Donald Trump. And what can we do? What can you and I do in this situation? Well, for one thing, we can recognize that here we are. Here we are, human being. I am a human being. We can recognize I am a human being. I have had input of all sorts my whole life, from my family, from my school, from my government, and even more so from my television, from my media. All this is coming into me, and it's making me very confused, very anxious, and very fearful. There's so much chaos, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, one route I see many medicate themselves in all sorts of ways. The opioid crisis, the use of more tranquilizers and drugs, the creation of more illness and fear around it. These are the ways that people cope with this terrible stress and fear. They bring it into their body, they somatize it. But there are other ways that we could work with this situation. We could recognize that we are not this, that we can turn this around, turn this mess around by identifying what I want, what I desire, and begin to create that condition in the self. What do I desire? I desire cessation of fear. I don't want any more of this garbage coming at me. I want to stop the fear trip that's being created in myself. I want health in my body. I choose to create a healthy condition. I choose to stop taking in the garbage. I have power. I can create the kind of world I wish for myself, my family, my children, my country, and my world. I do not want to create a crisis. I will look for the method to cooperate, even if it's a small gesture, like when I go to the store, when I go into Walmart, when I go into Macy's or the mall or the grocery store, anywhere I go, I smile. I find things to feel good about around me, the food that's on the shelves, the products that are on the shelves that I have brought to myself, my car or my transportation I can ride around in. We just simply make a big smile, and that begins a process of turning around the fear. The body actually responds to a smile. I smile to all myself inside me, all my little organs that may not be healthy. I smile at them. I reassure them. I tell them all will be well. I smile at my world. I write letters to my politicians. I support and I encourage them. I encourage people that I believe will work for cooperation, for supporting the species, whatever that looks like. and for supporting the globe and all its individuals. And in that way, I make my own decisions about what I feel is right for me. And I align myself with those wonderful forces that help me to believe in the goodness of this world. All those forces around me that unify, that create a whole, that diminish fear, that diminish confusion and chaos. In other words, I get a grip on myself. And when I get a grip on myself, I become a powerful entity standing in my truth, my choices, and my beliefs to create a better, more peaceful, less chaotic, more beneficial world for all. And I see a giant cornucopia coming with the fruits of this kind of thinking, which will generate action to create this cornucopia. Well, I thank you very much for listening for this prediction for 2019 and how we may pass through this very difficult time with much more grace and steadiness and purposefulness in 2019. Thank you.